All right. Starting out good. Good evening, everybody. If you need a Bible, please raise your hand because we've got some coming around. Romans chapter 12. We've not been in Romans chapter 12 for several weeks, I think. I can't even remember when it was. But we are back in Romans chapter 12. I've got a few things to show you before we get into Romans chapter 12, and that is that we are in the second half, the home stretch in Romans. We've gone through the first 11 chapters. Incredible. We've learned a lot of incredible things. We're now chapters 12 through 16. So the first 11 chapters are all about doctrine. It's like, it's basically like you're gathering up all the info. You're reading the instructions. And now you've read the instructions. Time to put the bike together. Or time to put the whatever it is that you buy. Piece of furniture or a shelf or whatever you've got. It's like I've looked at all the instructions, everything's there. I understand what I have. They included those cheap little tools that are going to end up stripping the screws, but oh well, everything's there, and now it's time to get to work. So that's what chapter 12 through 16 is all about. Like, you've got all this info, now it's time to put it into practice. And we started looking at that last time, again, so it's been a few weeks, that we were in Romans chapter 12. I'm going to fly through the first half real quickly so that we have a running start before we finish off the last half. In Romans chapter 12, there were two main divisions. We saw that there was part of it was addressed to the saints. How do we live with the saints, the Christians? How do we respond to the Christians? What we will see tonight and focus in on is how do we respond to the sinners? How do we live with the sinners? Okay? So there's instructions for all of that. Now, here's what we've learned so far in the first 13 verses to the saints, that I must present myself as a living sacrifice. Okay? It's a very well-known verse that we need to present our bodies as living sacrifices. And the idea is, it's service. It's all about, how can I serve? Well, one way that I can serve is by presenting myself, just my total self, and looking for opportunities. Some of you may remember that we then got into the second part, which was prove myself by loving sacrifice. So I'm going to present myself, here I am, and then I am to start lovingly sacrificing for others. And he mentioned a whole bunch of things. You may remember this. I'm going to go through them real quickly. He said, hey, if you've got the gift of prophecy, use it. Ministry, use it. If your gift is teaching, then start teaching. If it's exhortation, then exhort. If your gift is to give, then give with liberality. If your gift is to lead, do it with diligence, do it well, do it to the best of your ability. If your gift is to show mercy, then do it with cheerfulness. And then he goes on to say in verse 9, let love be without hypocrisy. So let's not love in order to get something, because that would be hypocritical. That's not really love. Let me love without expecting anything in return. He went on to say, abhor what is evil, cling to what is good, be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love. That was for us, for fusion right there. Be kindly affectionate toward one another. You see somebody new come in. You go over and you say, hey, what's going on? What's it? And you welcome them. You do your best to welcome them. Or a friend shows up and they've got a new friend with them. And it's not like, hey, you're not part of the club, so get out. But no, you're welcomed in with brotherly love. Giving honor or preference to one another. In other words, letting others go first. Being a blessing to them. He went on to say, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit. So he was ripping through all those things, and it was good for us, because what we learned was that the gift of teaching is not the only gift. That the gift of leading worship is not the only gift. That there are lots of other things, lots of other gifts that you might have that you need to start putting into practice. So that's what we were talking about with the saints. We want to just give ourselves, hey, I'm here to be a blessing, to help out wherever I can, and then I want to do that by lovingly sacrificing. Now, what we do is we go into the second half here, beginning at verse 14, and it's all about our relationship to those that are not saved. How do we respond to them? How do we live with them or around them? What is that supposed to look like? I am so glad that you asked, because I'm about to tell you. Okay? Verse 14. Look how this starts out. This is going to knock your socks off. Okay? You got socks on? No. Prepare to have them knocked off. No. You don't have socks? I haven't gotten there yet. Levi, man. Levi's always got to be first. It's a competition. The first thing that he says is be a blessing. Look at this. He says in verse 14, bless those who persecute you. You and I have experienced persecution. Now there is a book, Fox's Book of Martyrs. Anybody ever heard of that? Fox's Book of Martyrs? Okay. How many have ever heard of Jesus Freaks? That book, Jesus Freaks. A few more of you, okay? Because Fox's Book of Martyrs is older. Jesus Freaks is the newer version, and but those books are all about martyrs, Christians in the past who suffered and even died for their faith. Okay, that was persecution. However, you and I have experienced persecution in 2020. We never thought it would happen. It happened right here in the United States and right here in California. It happened. Our church, back in March, remember that? Like March, we were showing up Sunday mornings, and like the first Sunday morning, it was like, boom, half the class gone. Then we showed up the next Sunday morning, and it was like me and Matt looking at each other. Everybody was gone because the Rona had just like made its debut, right? And everybody freaked out. Everybody split. And Matt and I were the only ones here. And when that all started, he had hair and my beard was black. That's what happened. The Rona hit us, and we just like, this is it. No. But then what happened was we started to talk about, hey, let's go back. Pastor John, our senior pastor, was like, man, God is just putting it on my heart. Like, we've got to get back to church. We've got to reopen things. And he was like wanting to open everything, like, let's just do it. And the pastoral staff was like, okay, we'll open it, but let's go slow. We don't really know let's just take it a little slower. And but we started to open, and then what happened? Then we began to hear from the government, you can't meet in church. You cannot do that. And so many churches stayed closed. Then we heard, okay, you can meet, but you can only have like 3 people there. Remember that? And then it was like, okay, you can meet, but just a few people. You stay over there, you stay over there. And then remember they said this, they said, you can't sing. And we came and we sang louder, right? But what we've had is we have experienced in the process of all of that, our state government saying, other states are opening up and allowing different things, and our state government, along with New York, along with other states, it wasn't just California, but we were starting to be told, hey, you cannot reopen and you can't meet and you can't do anything. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you something. You guys already know this. That's not like I said. I'm going to be honest with you. You already know this. This place, this church, is cleaner than Target has ever been. Amen? Amen? I have been to Target. My wife works at Target. I've been to Target. At the end of the night tonight, we're going to wipe down chairs. Irvin will come in and he'll spray things that people have been touching. In the main sanctuary, they have these like Ghostbuster backpacks. And after service, they go through and they just like fog the whole place, and they blow this Corona killer all over everything. This place is so clean. I go to Target. I spend a lot of time at Lowe's, okay? Because I'm working on something. I make a bunch of mistakes, and I got to go back like 8 times, okay? But I go to Lowe's, and I'm like, I pick up this piece. I'm like, no, it's not the one I need. I put it back. I go, somebody else comes behind me. They pick it up like, no, that's not what I need. They take off. Somebody else comes like, that thing never gets cleaned, never gets wiped down, never gets sprayed. The place is filthy, okay? This place has been so clean, but we were being told, not we specifically, but as a church, we were being told, hey, you can't open up. And there are a lot of churches who still are closed. A lot of you know that because you came from other churches, you and your families. And they still are closed, and many churches won't ever open up again, sadly. We have seen persecution, and though none of us have died because of that persecution, we've seen it. How do we respond to that? Hate all of them, right? Just hate them, right? So just sign petitions to get him out of office, and just sign a petition that I hate him, right? That's how we respond. But look what he says here. I can't stand it. Even with 4 legs, I could not stand this. Verse 14, bless those who persecute you. Watch out. What does that mean? What does that mean? First of all, what does it mean to bless someone? Does anybody know what it means to bless someone? What does that mean when you bless someone?
To wish the best for them.
To wish the best for them. Yes, what else?
Shower with love.
Shower them with love. Yes. Give them something that they don't have. Good. Yeah. Yeah. It is to enhance their life, to make their life a little bit, a lot more, whatever, but more delightful. Now hold on. We have experienced persecution, you and I, and so many other churches. You have Christian family members from other churches that you used to belong to, that you've not seen since all of this happened. And many have fallen away. And we're supposed to bless the people that are doing this? And that, my friends, is exactly what Paul says there. Bless those who persecute you. And then while you're going like this, like, I know I did not just hear that. He says it again at the end of verse 14. Look what he does. He says, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. In case you were thinking, I didn't hear you the first time. He says it twice. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. So what does that mean? What does that mean for us? What does that mean for us here in California and the governor that we have? What does that mean? You guys don't want to answer, just like I don't want to answer, right? What'd you say, Trinity? Levi. We should love our enemies. Bless that man. Do I want to bless that man? Absolutely not. I don't want to do that. But we're not talking about what we want. We're talking about what God's word says, what we are supposed to do because we are Christians. Now, I don't have enough time to go into this much deeper, but only to say this. Now, just because someone's persecuting us or treating us bad, and we are supposed to bless them, bless and do not curse, does not mean like we're supposed to just allow them to continue treating us badly or continue what they're doing. So in the case of our government officials, it is okay next time what is it called? The voting comes around, the elections. It is okay to elect someone else. Get them out of office. They're not doing any good. But in the meantime, our job is never to hate them, badmouth them, bash them, but to be a blessing to them. Let me ask you a question. Does our governor, does his cabinet here in California, do they need prayer? You're like, yeah, they need prayer. They need Jesus is what they need. Yeah. Well, how are they going to get it? They're going to get it from one another? I'm not sure that any of them know Jesus. But we know Jesus. And I know that that governor needs Jesus. And I know that some of the people that he works with need Jesus. And he's never going to get Jesus unless someone that has Jesus takes Jesus to him. And so we ought to be a blessing to these people. See what he's just done to us? See what he's done to us? Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Now notice what he's saying, okay? If somebody is Somebody that's not a Christian, they're really anybody, but we are focusing in on people that are not saved right now. Rejoice with those who rejoice. If your neighbor who's not saved is rejoicing because, man, they just got a new car, and you're thinking, God, why did you give them a new car? And I'm a Christian, I don't have a new car. But I'm to rejoice with those people. Weep with those who weep. Okay? So I am to rejoice with those who are rejoicing, weep with those who weep. In other words, I am to be identifying with these people that are not saved. Be of the same mind toward one another. Now that does not mean, let me tell you what that does not mean. That if my neighbor who's not saved comes over and says, hey, listen, man, I'm going to drink a beer. You want to go with me? And you think, well, I got to be of the same mind toward one another. So, okay. No, that's not what we're talking about. Okay? We're not talking about that. What we're saying is when it comes to other people, we ought not just be worrying about just ourselves and what we have going on and what we're doing and what matters to me, but I ought to be identifying with the people around me, showing compassion when they need compassion. When my neighbor who's not saved is really suffering, or they're scared, they're terrified of something, I ought to do my best to be a blessing to those individuals, to those people. That's my job as a Christian. That's what I've got to do that. He's telling us here to do that. Be of the same mind toward one another. Do not set your mind on high things. So don't walk around with like, hey, I'm better than everybody else, but associate with the humble. Now, didn't our leader, Jesus, do that very thing? Didn't he minister to prostitutes and to drunkards and to the physically handicapped? Didn't he minister to people who had leprosy? He did. He did. Didn't he minister to tax collectors? He did do that. Yeah. He did not associate, or rather, he did not set his mind on high things, but he associated with the humble. Perfect example. And then he says in verse 16, do not be wise in your own opinion. It's not all about your opinion on things. Like, no, everything that someone says is, that's just dumb. No, I know better. So I can't have that kind of lofty mentality. I want to associate with the low, or associate, what does he say? Associate with the humble. Those that have less than you. Those that are suffering with something. I need to do my best to associate with them. Why? What is the point of all of this? Well, these people need Jesus. Everybody needs Jesus. But I can't look at someone and say, oh my goodness, he or she they're dirty, or they are, they're less than, or I can just tell that, what kind of lifestyle they're living. But we need to do our best to associate with all of those people. Zach Brown and I were at Home Depot, Lowe's. Home Depot? Lowe's. What is it? Lowe's. I can't remember what's over here. And we went in to buy your Christmas tree. And we were in line behind a gentleman. We were talking about masks. And we didn't have the mask on because we were outside. But we were talking about it. And then the guy in front of us, he turned around to give us his 2 cents. And it was apparent in the first 2 seconds that he was not a Christian. A nice guy toward us, but he had some choice words, some language, and he wasn't mad at us. He was mad at everybody else, at the governor and whoever else. But he was letting us know, oh yeah, these bleepity bleep this and these bleepity bleep that, and bleepity bleep bleepity bleep bleep bleep. And we didn't. I mean, Zach didn't like, oh my gosh, you are not saved, you filthy man, and take off, right? He just stayed there with me. And then we just did our best to just make conversation with this guy. Now, let me tell you what I did not do. I did not say, oh yeah, bleepity bleep this and bleepity bleep that. and I go to Bleepity Bleep Revival, and why don't you come on over? I was not associating with him in that way. All I was doing was, I was doing my best to identify with him in his frustration that, yeah, it's frustrating, and here's, this, and that's what's going on, and okay, and when he left, it was like, okay, see you guys later, have a good day. Now, I don't know what this guy's attitude is toward Christ. I have a clue, but the truth is I don't know him. I don't know if he would outright reject it. Now, if I had come to him and said, I stood behind him in line and said, excuse me, Lowe's shoppers, my name is Pastor Chris, and this is youth leader Zach, and we're here to pay for our Christmas tree. I don't know how he would have responded. He may have thought, oh, it's a pastor, so let me watch my language. Or he might have thought, oh, it's a pastor, and I'm gonna let him hear some of my language. I don't know. I don't know how he would have responded. But you see, in the moment, all we did was identify with his frustration, and we're there, and went, oh yeah, this, and and talk to him a little bit, and perhaps, now we didn't get the opportunity to share the gospel with him, but perhaps had he stuck around a little bit longer, maybe we would have been able to okay, let's start to slip it in there a little bit. Let's but it's the initial just, yeah, I'm identifying with you, man. I feel you. I understand what you're talking about. We cannot be so scared. I love how he finishes this verse up. We'll get to it. Don't let me, I'm trying to jump the gun and I can't do that. But we need to make an effort to not run away from those situations and from those people, but to associate with those, associate with the humble like Christ did. Now, do not be wise in your own opinion. Let's move on. I want to be a blessing to those that are not saved. The second and final thing is, I need to be a peacemaker. Verse 17. Look what he says. Repay no evil for evil. He is hitting us hard on these sections, man. I mean, he started out by saying, bless your governor. Right? Bless those who persecute you. And then he says, repay no one evil for evil. So someone does something evil against you. He says, don't repay evil for what they did to you. But Paul, it feels so good when I do that. Right? Makes me feel so good when I get somebody back for something that they did to me. He says, no, repay no evil for evil. He says, have regard for good things in the sight of all men. Have regard for good things. In other words, enjoy good things, wholesome things, godly things. Okay? In the sight of all men simply means, don't let people see you, I don't know. Don't let somebody catch you, stealing something from Stater Brothers. Now, that doesn't mean, hey, just don't get caught. That means don't do it. Don't do it. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. He says in verse 18, if it is possible, he says. See, Paul is speaking sense. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. And I would even be so bold as to change that word men to mankind or to people. It's not just the dudes. It's everybody. Listen to what he says in verse 18. If it is possible, as much as depends on you. In other words, as far as you're concerned, be at peace with everybody around you. Now, some people just won't like you. Some of you need to hear this. Little slight detour. There are just going to be some people in your life that don't like you. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can try it all. You can try to get the right haircut, and they still won't like you. You could try to wear the right kind of shirt, and they still won't like you. You can go and buy yourself the right kind of cologne, walk around smelling like Hollister, and they still won't like you. You can go buy that skirt from H&M, and they still will not like you. You can you can download that one band on your phone, listen to it out loud, and they still won't like you. So there are some people, just, it does not matter what you do, they just are not going to like you. There's nothing you can do about it. The best thing you can do, just relax. There will be plenty of people that do like you. We like you. Isn't that enough? Isn't our love for you enough? The point is this, that to the best of your ability, just be at peace with other people. If somebody doesn't like you, do your best to be at peace with them. Don't give them a reason to hate you even more, but just do your best to be at peace with them. If it is possible, as much as it depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Verse 19, beloved. Look what he calls us, beloved. He's buttering us up here because he says, do not avenge yourselves. Okay? Somebody does something to you, don't go get revenge. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather, instead, give place to wrath. What? I'm going to explain, or he goes on to explain, but I'll explain in case you're kind of confused. Do not avenge yourselves, but give place to wrath. For it is written, this is Deuteronomy 32, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. So, somebody does something wrong to you, you allow God to get vengeance. God says, I'll do it. I'll get vengeance. Vengeance is mine, God says. We allow him to do that. There are special cases. There are times when, somebody, surely in this group, I know many of you are driving already. Some of you, the rest of you will be driving very soon, I'm sure. And there's going to be time when you get into a fender bender or somebody hits you, and then there may be times when they try to turn it around and blame it on you, and they're trying to sue you or rip you off. And it's okay in those times. It is okay in those times to say, hey, listen, I'm gonna get my insurance, or I'm gonna get my lawyer, and we're gonna deal with this. This is what he's not telling us here, is that, hey, it's okay if somebody just runs you off the road. Just don't worry about it. Just let them go. He's not saying that. He's talking about having that attitude of, man, I'm not trying to hunt people down and get back at them and, she said this to me, so I'm going to say this on my IG, or, he did this, so I'm going to make sure that I do this back to him. He's saying, don't live like that. We can't do, we're Christians, and we ought not be doing those things. Verse 20, therefore, here it is, Proverbs 25. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. What? If your enemy is hungry, I am to feed him? If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in so doing, you will heap coals of fire on his head. Now, there's all kinds of, we can have huge arguments. You can get online tonight and look up, for in so doing, you will heap coals of fire on his head. You can look that up, and you will see a million different opinions on that, what that means. Here's what I'm telling you. I don't know exactly what that last line means. In so doing, you will heap coals of fire on his head. That doesn't sound like a good thing. But I'm not really sure what that means. So here's what I do. When I'm not sure what that means, let me fall back on what I do know. When I don't know something, let me fall back on what I do know. What do I know? Well, what I do know is, in the first part of verse 20, that there's no mistaking. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. Is that clear? Sounds clear to me. If your enemy is hungry, bless that person, feed that person. If he or she is thirsty, watch out. If he's thirsty, give him a drink. In other words, be a blessing to them. Give to them. Why? Because it may be that in blessing them, you will help to change their attitude, the way they view you, maybe even perhaps the way they view God. So we need to be active doing that. And here's how he finishes this up. Verse 21, this is where we're going to finish. Do not be overcome by evil. Don't be overcome by it. Somebody is going to do something to you, and all your little posse, your little crew is going to be like, oh, you need to get that person back. You need to do so, you need to fight him, or you need to fight her. Here, hold my earrings. And they will want you to do something back. And then when you say this, when you say, no, man, listen, when you say this, when you say, look, I am supposed to bless those who persecute me. They're going to do like a, what? What did you just say? Like what did you just say? And people will have a certain view of you, like, man, you're scared, or whatever they want to think. Doesn't matter. What matters is, what does God think? What does God say? And God's word says, do not be overcome by evil. Don't allow evil to overcome you. If it's man, I really want to get this person back. Listen, don't let evil control you. Well, I really, she did this to me, so I'm going to do this back to her. No, don't let evil overcome you. Now, we feel so wimpy when we read this section. Like, man, I can't do nothing. I can't take vengeance. I got to bless people. I got to feed my enemies. I got to give them something to drink. Listen, verse 21, look how he finishes. Do not be overcome by evil. And then he says this. All of this has kind of been, it almost seems to me like it's on the defensive. Like, don't take vengeance. Don't get it. No, leave him alone. All right, fine. He's hungry. Great. Let him be hungry. No, you give him something to eat. Okay, I'll give him something to eat. Well, then in verse 21, he finishes with these 5 words. But overcome evil with good. You see, in the end, at verse 21, he goes on the offensive. This is the active part of all of this. What am I to do? I can't take vengeance. I can't, do this. I can't get that person back. What can I do? He says there in verse 21, overcome evil with good. That's our part, Fusion. That's where you and I put it all into action. That's how evil is overcome. Evil is overcome by good. I'm going to share this with you. You don't have a choice in the matter right now, but you're forming your choices and your opinions. There are many good and godly people that are fleeing the state of California because it's so nasty here. It's true. But let me ask you this question. Think about this. If all of the good and godly people leave, who's left? Anybody? Who's left? Who's going to be left? Nathan?
I mean, a corrupt society, honestly.
It's corrupt already, right? It's corrupt enough. But if all the good and godly people leave, the only thing that's left is corruption. That's it. That's it. Paul is not telling us here, oh man, just flee, get away as fast as you can. He's actually telling us the opposite. No. In fact, what we need, I'm using California as an example because there's all kinds of political stuff going on, and you're probably hearing about it from parents or whatever. Some of you might like the politics and you're into that and you're hearing about it. So I'm using it as an example. Here's the deal. If we want California to be changed, doesn't it make sense that we should, instead of having people flee California, all the good and godly people leaving, doesn't it seem like we should get more of them here? Yes or no? Yes. So, see, I'm telling you because some of you are like, everybody in here is at least 4 years away from graduation, going to college, or you're going to be making choices about your own life, whether to stay, whether to go, whether to move, whether to leave, whether to whatever. And I want you to consider that the answer is not in good and godly men and women fleeing, but actually in running too. We just remembered on Monday the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Remember that? Of course you don't remember that. You weren't there. Neither was I. Okay. But you know what I'm talking about, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And from that disaster, from that tragedy, there were so many heroic stories of heroism. People who, instead of jumping overboard and trying to swim away, actually ran toward the explosions and toward those that were hurt. 9/11. Back in September, we remembered that. And we celebrated those who, when the buildings were on fire and there was smoke and things were crumbling, and you've seen the pictures, just thousands of people running away, and then you see these individuals in their fire gear, and police officers and other men, women, every single skin color, every age. You see those running toward these crumbling buildings. And yes, many people lost their lives. That is true. And many of those that were rushing in to help others lost their lives. But in the process, those that ran toward were able still, even in those last moments, to save some. And so you have those that are still alive today because somebody was willing to rush in. Now see, if everybody in that instance had just run away, all of the fire workers, all the police officers, all of the rescuers, if everybody had just fled, then there would have been many more that had died at 9/11. Do you see what I'm getting at? That's where Paul's at. He says, listen, do not be overcome by evil, but instead overcome evil with good. Be active with the good things that you are doing. The good and godly things that now we know about because, man, it's right here, and I just read a whole chapter on it, and I see all of these things that I'm supposed to be doing. He's saying, yeah, now that you know all of that, start doing it. Because that is what is going to bring real and lasting change. And I'm telling you, some of you are 18 already. Others are going to be there real quick. And in the next few years, you're going to be making all of those decisions. What kind of life are you going to live? You're going to live a life of always running away from the bad things? Always running away. Always. Where are you going to go to? Where are you going to go to where the bad things don't show up? At what point are you going to decide that, no, you know what? I'm not running anymore. I'm going to stand, and I'm going to overcome evil with good. That's what we need. And that's what Paul's telling us to do. It's God's word. Let me show you a couple of things.